Hello everyone and welcome back to the 1950 Formula 1 World Championship. My name is TPL Motorsport and today we have the second round of the 1950 season, the first ever official running of the Monaco Grand Prix. Just taking a quick look at the track map here will reveal a few key differences to how the circuit looks today. For one, the swimming pool section is completely absent. That wasn't commissioned until around the mid 70s I'm thinking of. Until then it was the gasometer hairpin. The chicane just after the tunnel section was the chicane de port. It was a very dangerous left-right hand which you could take flat out during the 50s, although it was never recommended that you do, because if you were to get it slightly wrong, you would hit the barrier and end up in the drink, real easily. The tunnel section was a lot shorter than it is today, and the Fairmount hairpin, the slowest corner in all of F1, was called the station hairpin. So we've just loaded in for qualifying here, and right off the bat you may notice that the pits are positioned in a very odd spot. That's because for a majority of the 50s, or at least until the 60s as far as I'm aware, the pits were positioned just past the chicane de port, which thankfully didn't stay that way for very long because quite honestly just racing this circuit looked pretty dangerous. So anyway, this is my supposed qualifying lap you should be seeing right now. My actual qualifying lap that I did used to qualify for the race, I accidentally deleted because I recorded it as a separate clip and yeah, I just deleted it out of pure stupidity. Anyway, this is in the wet and my qualifying lap was actually in the dry. But anyway, diverting our attention back to the lap, we've just exited gasometer hairpin and we're now on what is now the main straight of the Monaco street circuit, just heading into Saint-Devote, which can reasonably be considered a high-speed corner here since you don't really need to brake at all. In fact, as long as you take the right line, you can go flat out if you have the balls for it. Unfortunately, I didn't. That's why you see me lift there. Just coming through Maisonette corner here, we get a glimpse of the Monaco Casino, which is a very historic building, and it's a very historic corner, I should add. It's amazing how it's remained unchanged throughout all these years, personally. But anyway, through Mirabeau we go, and on to the Fairmount hairpin. Of course, now back then, it was known as the station hairpin, for reasons that escape my mind at this point in time. Coming through Portier now though, the tunnel would usually start right about here if we were driving the main track, but alas, this is 1950, so the tunnel will start here. And of course it was a lot more drab and a lot less glamorous than what we see there nowadays. So through the chicane de port we go, and I just barely managed to make it through there full throttle without hitting the inside pit wall, I guess you would call it now. Now just coming through Bureau de Tabac, it's actually a very difficult corner, more so than what it looks, as a lot of braking is required, but thankfully I managed to get through it unscathed. So anyway, with all that out of the way, we crossed the line, and that was a 1 minute 32.915. Of course, bearing in mind that that was in wet conditions, I did get a faster lap in the actual race, which of course were in nice sunny dry conditions. So just skipping forward to the race, we're going to get straight onto the grid walk for the 1950 Monaco Grand Prix. Nino Farina, Juan Manuel Fangio, Luigi Fagioli and Louis Rosier line up in pole. An unusually good performance for the Turbo Lagos, I should add. Alberto Ascari, Peter Whitehead, Harry Schell, Prince Bira in 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th. Reg Parnell in the lowest of the Alphas will be in 9th. Carbenteau will line up in 10th with Teodoro Serafini in 11th, Louis Chiron in 12th, Raymond Sommer 13th, Felipe Adenkellen in 14th, our guy Albert Salter will rest in 15th, Felice Bonetto will be in 16th, Robert Manz in 17th, our teammate Jeff Crosley and the fellow Altar will be in 18th, Culf Harrison in 19th, Eugene Chavot will be in 20th, Bob Gerald will be in 21st, and David Hampshire will line out the grid in 22nd. So, with all the cars on the grid checked and accounted for, all we have left to do now is wait for the flag to drop. Wait for it. The flag is dropped, and we are racing here at Monaco. Only to be held up, before we even get to the gasometer hairpin, by a pack of slow-moving AI. Yeah, this is a point of contention that I'm going to bring up probably throughout this race. It doesn't handle the corners, particularly the slow ones at Monaco, very well. In fact, I let everyone go by here at the gasometer hairpin just so I can intentionally start from last to show just how inept the AI can be sometimes going around here, as you will see. But anyway, coming up to our first crash here, we have a multi-car pile-up here. I believe our teammate Jeff Crosley was involved in that. He didn't retire though, thankfully. This will be a running theme throughout this race, I'm going to warn you now. In fact, this wasn't the first time I had to restart the race to record this video. But I eventually just reached a point where I'm just like, whatever. What happens, happens. I'm just done with it. So anyway, you might have seen one of the alphas there spinning at Mazanet Corner. That was an alpha of Reg Parnell, I believe. As we see, I believe that's Raymond Sommer, who goes over at Mazanet. No, Mazanet, Mirabeau, my mistake. And as we go through the station hairpin, we'll get quite a peculiar sight. A Maserati that falls so hard off the bank that it phases through the very existence of asphalt itself, as we pass by a rolling Ferrari. The only reason you're seeing this full lap, by the way, is just to show off just how carnage filled and just how much action there can be at the start of a Monaco Grand Prix and F1 Challenge VB. As you are seeing right now, that is 2 Talbot Lagos that ended up spinning off at the chicane de Port. In fact, I think 3 cars ended up in the harbour just in the first lap alone, which you will see in a few moments here, after we complete our first lap here. We're already in 4th position, having started from 15th, although we might as well have started from 22nd from our first lap antics. Not as bad as everyone else's though, unfortunately, or fortunately rather. So anyway, we're gonna look at the first of many retirements this race. You're looking at Louis Rosier, who ends up doing exactly what it looks like. He misjudges it, hits his back corner against the, I guess you would call it, pit wall, and flings himself into the harbour. He was flung out into the harbour though, unfortunately, therefore he was able to swim back just fine. So just moments before that happened, you'll see Felipe Edenkellen along with Carpenter coming off in pretty much exactly the same way. Rather unfortunate for them. Now, we're looking at dual retirements here. You will see a... Jesus Christ, that is Nino Frina and one Manuel Fangio you might have seen spinning past your frame there. They both ended up falling into the harbour rather spectacularly, not hitting any of these fancy yachts, fortunately. I'm sure the owners will be rather pleased to hear that. Hopefully the drivers remain unscathed. They would have gotten their overalls a bit waterclogged though, which is rather unfortunate, but these things happened, I guess, back in the 1950s. As part of the racing driver resume. So just skipping ahead to our 3rd lap here, we don't see as many retirements as the first lap, obviously. We do see a couple though. I believe that is a Ferrari. I still need to memorize the numbers for these drivers here. I promise I'll do that next race, but until then, you're just going to get sweeping generalizations. Now, we're going to see a lot of retirements here, just coming through Mirabeau. That is Colt Harrison, who ends up not tipping over onto his roof, much like, I think it was a works team car there that went over. Now, another Alpha retires, and it is not quite clear how it happened. We're going to have to switch to an onboard camera view to see how that happened. He gets a bit loose coming out of the casino corner, and now going into Mirabeau, he gets a lot of understeer and ends up smashing square into the start of the stone, I guess guardrail you would call it, coming out of Mirabeau, from which Harry Schell smashes into the back of them, causing them both to retire. We're going to go on board here with Harry Schell just to get a better look at how it happened, along with his own retirement. Harry Schell himself ends up clipping the curve and sends himself into a roll. He would of course have been flung out of the car and forcing him to obviously retire, although no major injuries would have been obtained. Now, I believe this is Prince Bearer, who retires in much the same way, except he goes over the guardrail, not onto the ground below thankfully, but rather onto the grass banking. Now, the camera angles at that particular corner there are kind of obscured, so we're going to have to use a lot of on-board cameras to get a better look at how all these accidents happened. The physics are of course a bit messed up when you go on grass over there, much like all the grass in this game actually. But anyway, this is Felicia Bonetto, who actually flips and lands on his all four wheels, and goddamn, is that not a shot or what? Look at that, that is some prime thumbnail material, which you may or may not have seen before clicking on this video. Anyway, we're looking at Peter Whitehead here, who also crashing off at Mirabeau, does a bit of a spinning top maneuver there just for a bit there. I don't really know how to describe it, my apologies. All I can really say is that these drivers have spinal structures akin to that of gods, or actual mannequins. Either way, we're skipping forward to lap 2 here, just coming up past lap 2, and if you noticed, just before we entered chicane to port, I instantly jumped to the lead, which isn't a good sign. Not on lap 2 of 34. Not at all. Yeah, it's not really a big point of discussion here, I'm afraid. I'm a bit lost for words. But anyway, just coming past lap 2, most of the cars in the race have actually retired just on this third lap here we're now on. In fact, the only reason I included this clip at all is just to show you how much of a gap we've already built up to the car behind us because of all the retirements that have taken place. It's really quite unprecedented, for lack of a better word. And in fact, so much for a lack of a better word that I don't know what to say. Except that Alberto Ascari just crossed the line, 34 seconds behind us. In fact, at this point I believe there was only 2 cars left in the race. That is how bad this race is getting. Just because we don't really have anything better to do, we're gonna have a look at a few accidents that happened in the past few laps. You would have just seen David Hampshire just fly off Mirabeau and through the asphalt. I believe this is the incident that happened on lap 1 you would have just seen. We're going to get an onboard view of this here since, well, the trackside camera didn't actually do too bad of a job, but just for a bit of cheeky filler, we're just going to have a look at this and look at that infinite ocean. It's glorious. Anyway, that was the only real, I guess, game-breaking. Well, I guess it wouldn't be game breaking, it'd be more like track breaking, wouldn't it? I'm so funny, aren't I? Anyway, lap 4 here. More spins, more spills, not so much thrills. Although we will be seeing a bit more retirements as time progresses. There won't be many laps in this race, I'm going to tell you that much here. It doesn't end up being a very exciting race. It's quite lonely up here in first, I should say. You can only get so much enjoyment from treating the race pretty much like a time trial session and continuously beating your best lap time. So we're going to cut to a few accidents that happened at the Portier corner. You would see on your screens that was Eugene Chavo that just rolled and ended up coming to rest on his lack of a roof, or helmet more accurately. And that was Louis Chiron, who got off a bit worse, but not too much worse though. Ended up rolling a couple of times. But regardless, when a car does get sent into a roll in this mod, they are treated as a retirement. Since obviously, being the lack of seatbelts back then, they would no longer be in the car. Folks, this is just sapping my brain dry of just stuff to say. It is quite astounding how boring one race can get once you take away all the competitors. And now Jeff Crosley here, one of the couple of retirements that came from the Mazanet corner, he ends up getting off pretty harshly, I should say. He does get sent into a couple of rolls there. Do hope he's alright. I would hate to go the rest of the season without having a teammate, but these things happen, I guess. So much as the attitude of racing back then, which I guess you've got to take in stride with everything that happens nowadays, am I right? But flat attempt at comedy aside, or on what would be our final lap here, on lap 6, for reasons that you will see just in a little while, In fact, all the retirements you have seen have been about 3/4 of the competitors so far. We're going to look at the last few retirements here. What you'll be seeing on screen right now is Teodoro Serafini, who, coming through Mirabeau, ends up flipping on the curb, getting flung out of his car presumably, and retiring. Now, since the camera angles proved to fail us once again, we will get a look at the onboard camera just to get a better view. I mean, at least he gets a good view of the harbour. And coming to the last retirement of this race, Alberto Ascari ends up spinning at Mazanet corner, much like Jeff Crosley. Ends up trying to get back around, but misjudges his turning circle, goes straight into the wall, and takes his left front wheel off. And that's Alberto Ascari out of the race, and with that, all the other competitors, as a matter of fact. It's quite disappointing. I wish there could have been a bit more excitement happening in this race, other than just retirements. I would have hoped to have battled maybe one of them, given myself some challenge. Anyway, I've driven the last 2 laps uncompetition, so on lap 6 what I end up doing is requesting a pit stop and just pulling into the pits to humbly retire myself from the race, being as it would have been way too easy of a win if I had indeed gone the rest of the 28 laps, I believe. So we end up pulling into the pits. Nothing happens, of course, because tire wear and fuel usage are off, and we are out of the race. A rather disappointing way to end our Monaco Grand Prix. I think most of you will agree with me in saying that the race might as well have been cancelled at this point, which, in fact, that's how you'll be seeing Monaco listed on our little results screen at the bottom of the race results here. Albert Salter, of course, finished in first. He went 5 laps before retiring himself. Teodoro Serafini and Alberto Ascari were the only ones, I guess more accurately, were the last men standing, I guess you could say. Both in Ferraris, so I'm not sure what that says about the Ferrari team when all the other, not even the Alphas, managed to survive past lap 2, but I wish there was a lot more to say just as much as you do, folks, but quite frankly, this is one of those situations where what you see is what you get. So just taking one look at the arbitrary point standing screen after today's unfortunately cancelled race, these standings will obviously remain just as they were at the end of the British Grand Prix. Juan Manuel Fangio will remain at the top of the point standings, with Nino Farina and Luigi Fagioli following in second and third behind him. Harry Schell in the Lone Cooper will be in fourth. Reg Parnell will be the lowest of the Alphas in fifth right now. He will be at 2 points. And Albert Salter, with his 1 lone point from getting the fastest lap in the British Grand Prix back at Silverstone, will be in 6th position. So my final thoughts on this rather disappointing race, if you could even call it that, was that this was about the 12th or 13th attempt I made to record this race. I remember, I counted, trust me on that. And all the other attempts that were made was pretty much exactly what you just saw. Everyone crashing out, except it was within the first lap, rather than within the first 5 laps. Yeah, it really speaks volumes about the AI's intelligence when it comes to aggression settings and just track design in general, but nevertheless, all we can hope for at this point is that the races get better from this point onward, and hope that the 1951 Monaco Grand Prix will prove to be something great. I'll see you next time, everyone, at the Indianapolis 500. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you later.